Ladies and gentlemen, the great philosopher and thinker of our time, Justin Bieber, once said, "I will never say never," and this enlightened battle cry of optimism has never proven more apparent than in pre-Socratic Athens, where one of the greatest trollings in ancient history took place. When the building blocks of democracy had only just been laid by Solon, who was the Athenian statesman and tyrant of the early 6th century BC, the cunning yet generally respected military man Pisistratus seized total control of Athens in the 560s BC. He did this by basically faking an assault on himself, inflicting his own wounds, and then riding his cart into Athens, claiming that he was being persecuted by his political opponents.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
I love the young people.
This was apparently convincing enough, and the Athenians agreed to give him a personal detail of 50 men armed with clubs, which Pisistratus immediately used to storm the Acropolis and seize total power in Athens as tyrant. Never say never, they said. Anyways, Pisistratus was actually pretty quick to confront the disproportionate political power of the aristocracy by greatly reducing the economic privileges they enjoyed due to ancient bloodlines, many of them claiming ancestry from the Greek heroes of the Trojan War. Pisistratus got to work confiscating property and land and redistributing them to the poor, so that the struggling Athenians wouldn't have to suffer egregious loans with their own bodies and children as collateral anymore. Thus, Pisistratus was often called the friend of the poor. This obviously upset the other two political factions in Athens, the party of the plain led by Lycurgus, and the party of the coast led by Megacles. These represented the political interests of the aristocrats and the moderates respectively. Lycurgus and Megacles team up to drive Pisistratus out of Athens and into exile. And that's the end of the story. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, boy!
Just kidding, we haven't even gotten to the best part yet. 5 or 6 years go by and Lycurgus and Megacles revive old feuds with each other, and Megacles petitions Pisistratus to return to Athens, offering to reinstate him as tyrant and to take Megacles' daughter as his wife, because life was better when he was the top dog. But Pisistratus doesn't want to repeat old tricks and self-inflict wounds again. No, Pisistratus instead does what any person in his shoes would do, obviously, in what the historian Herodotus would call the silliest story I've ever heard, and could not possibly believe that the people of Athens would fall for it.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
When the deal with Megacles is confirmed, Pisistratus finds a really tall girl in an adjacent district to Athens, clothes her in a full suit of armor that resembles that of the goddess Athena, and places her in a grandiose chariot next to Pisistratus. These two ride into Athens together, announcing that Athena herself, the patron goddess of Athens, was personally reinstating Pisistratus and bringing him up to the Acropolis.
A few moments later.
The report spread like wildfire, many believing this farm girl was really Athena, with many worshipping her and readmitting Pisistratus with no objection as sole master of Athens.
The best.
This might seem a little silly, but there was at least an understandable reason for why so many would at least understand what Pisistratus is trying to pull off. You see, this kind of imagery comes straight out of Homer's Iliad, when the Achaean warrior Diomedes is uniquely anointed by Athena, not just with godlike strength, but with the ability to perceive the gods who are veiled and blended into the battlefield with mortals all throughout the Trojan War. In Book 5 of the Iliad, the god of war Ares is racking up carnage in favor of Hector and the Trojans, and Zeus gives Athena the authority to go down from Mount Olympus to stop him, Zeus himself trying to keep the immortal participation in the war to a minimum. When Athena descends, she hops into a chariot with the already caked out Diomedes, and together they charge straight at Ares. This fight against the god of war is straight out of Hollywood. Here's how it goes. When the two would come to close quarters, Ares began the fight with what he meant to be a mortal blow. He thrust at Diomedes with his bronze spear over the yoke and the horse's reins, but Athene of the flashing eyes, catching the shaft in her hand, pushed it up and above the chariot, where it spent its force in the air. Diomedes of the loud war cry then brought his spear into play, and Pallas Athene drove it home against the lower part of Ares' belly, where he wore an apron around his middle. There the blow landed, wounding the god and tearing his fair flesh. Diomedes drew out his spear, and brazen Ares let forth a yell as loud as the war cry of 10,000 battling men. So, in a culture and a polis where many drew their heritage from the same story, it's really not much of a reach to understand the imagery that Pisistratus is levying here. Just how noble Diomedes vanquished the god of war with the help of Athena, so now a new hero in Pisistratus is riding victoriously into the city with Athena to vanquish corruption from the battlefield. Word spread quickly, and our guy was in again. I mean, If you're going to go through all of that trouble just to make your point, then sure, the reign is yours. And that is the story of how Pisistratus bamboozled his own people and seized power in Athens for a second time, levying the literary devices from Homer. Oh yeah, Pisistratus gets thrown out again, but then he comes back again.